Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Utopia podcast. I am Chris, and alongside me is Tommy. Tommy, how's it been going?
Pretty good. Happy Columbus Day to you, sir.
Happy Columbus Day to you as well. News this week on both NCAA Football and NCAA Basketball since we joined you last. If you haven't fired up NCAA Football 10 in a while, make sure you do so. There's a third patch out there. Been out for about a week or two now at this point. Very surprising that they issued a third patch. Usually EA Tiburon has not done this. What it did, first off, it fixed the disconnect issues a lot of people were seeing in their online Dynasty games, and it also tuned player progression in Dynasty and online Dynasty per community feedback. The best part is there's no need to restart your Dynasty. The effects will take place just by going in and getting this patch, and you'll be prompted to download it if you fire up the game and you're connected online. The big news over the last week has been the videos coming out for NCAA Basketball 10. The release date, November 17th, 18th, depending where you look. The 17th is a Tuesday. That's what we're going to run with. The demo, they're listing it as November 6th, but that's a Friday. A lot of demos come out on either Tuesday or Thursday, depending if you're a Microsoft or a Sony guy. So we're going to roll with the 5th because that's a Thursday. First video that came out was the teaser trailer. They called it a track. It caught a lot of attention because it featured Gus Johnson narrating the video, had a lot of his famous lines and commentary in there. Tommy, we'll break down the three videos that came out. This was the very first one. What did you think when you first heard Gus Johnson in this video?
It got my blood pumping. I'm not a huge college basketball fan, but Gus Johnson I don't know, his voice just puts you in the mood to watch some college basketball and gets you really excited. And having him in the video game is just going to make it really big. Especially with what we'll get into in a minute with the presentation they've added.
And let's go right to that. Gus Johnson, a great addition. I know people on our site and other sites around the web asked for him to be in a college basketball game someday. They've gotten their wish. The first major video that came out that showed some gameplay action and in-game action showed us something that surprised a lot of people and had the sports gaming world really abuzz. Full CBS telecast presentation, the graphics, the menus, the music, plus two new commentators, Gus Johnson and Bill Raftery. Bill Raftery is probably my favorite basketball announcer. Gus Johnson right up there as well. They will be in the game. You will see CBS graphics and logos. When we saw this video, it just confirmed to us at the time the NCAA tournament was going to be full CBS coverage. Tommy, let's talk about this video, and not just the details, but the community reaction. I've never seen so many people talking about this game this early.
Yeah, it definitely drew the videos that we got this past week drew in a lot of people that normally don't pay very much attention to the series. The very first thing that I noticed is watching the CBS telecast integration video. You see the CBS NCAA logo kind of doing the heart pumping that they do for all of their telecasts that they do, and that just immediately grabs your focus and is a really big wow factor. And as we've seen, a lot of different people are coming through and just making comments on it that, I myself, I'm not one that typically picks up this series, but this definitely makes me want to lean towards buying it. It really is a huge deal, and it basically, as you commented earlier, it puts all other sports games on notice. This is something that the community is going to react to, something that everybody wants, and it just shows how much it can actually be a selling point of your game.
And that ties into the second video that came out one day later, full ESPN telecast integration with Dick Vitale, Brad Nessler, and Aaron Andrews. They were in last year's game. They're all back this year. They've added in more commentary. Last year, NCAA Basketball, each game started up that was televised with ESPN music in the background. Now you're going to have the full menus, the overlays. Basically, anything you see on an ESPN broadcast, you will see in the game. This didn't get people quite as excited as I think. We had a lot of this in place from last year with ESPN, not the full graphics, but the music, the commentators. And even last year's game did have some CBS in it. Not a lot of people knew it. When you got to the tournament time, the menus had the CBS logo, but obviously nothing like this, nothing like these videos showcased. This presentation, I'm still amazed by the reaction that's been out there. There's been a lot of comments on NCAAstrategies.com and other forums and sites talking about they keep singling out NCAA football because, granted, direct connection to the two college games. In one way, I think it's unfair to single out NCAA football on this. Do I think it needs this? Absolutely. There's no arguing, no debating. It needs to get full graphics overlays from ESPN, college football. But I think every sports game is on notice. Madden, Tiger Woods, Fight Night, NBA Live. I thought NBA Live 10 had very good presentation. And then this video came out later that day that NBA Live was released, and I changed my tune. That it's not that good, especially compared to what we're seeing from these videos. Let's talk about other sports games real quickly. What do you think this does? Has the bar been raised? And if so, how high is this bar all of a sudden for presentation?
The bar is really high now. I mean, ever since ESPN picked up the rights to use ESPN Interaction, everybody's always kind of expected the ESPN graphics, the sounds, the audio, etc. Everybody always expected it to be as part of the series, and it never has been, but until now. And now we're not only getting ESPN graphics, but we're also getting CBS graphics. That's basically telling all these other game companies, not just EA. I mean, it also tells 2K Sports, and it also tells SCEA Sports for MLB The Show that this really can draw a crowd. Just the telecast graphics alone can really draw in a crowd. It's amazing, just not only to see it in the actual game, but just to see the reaction of how big of a deal it's making.
Yesterday, a new blog went up at the Inside EA Sports blog from Sean Campbell. Talks about all these changes and then some that they had to make in order to get full CBS and ESPN telecast integration. That it's really just amazing the amount of changes they made on the presentation side. And a lot of people are saying, let's not get too excited. It's quote-unquote just the presentation. Let's wait to see how the gameplay is. We know the game is running on the Live engine, which has been very well received this year. A lot of people who were kind of torn between 2K and Live have went to Live. A lot of 2K fans are giving Live a try as well and like it. That the two NBA games have both been well received, and the Live engine really finally getting EAC basketball back to a pretty playable level. When it comes to the CBS and ESPN integration, let's talk about when this shows up. During your Dynasty games, if you play a weekday game, you will get the ESPN graphics and commentators. If your Dynasty game falls on the weekend, you will get CBS. Conference tournament time, it will depend on who actually owns the rights to your conference tournament. If CBS shows it all, then they have it. If ESPN owns it, that's who you'll see. And the NCAA tournament will be all on CBS like it is in real life, helping to add to the realism of when you see this. And if you do a play now game, you can pick if you want CBS or ESPN. The Dynasty mode in the now defunct College Hoops 2K franchise was excellent, very deep with the coaching carousel, assistant coaches, recruiting. It really had it all, did a very, very good job with it. People are hoping that NCAA Basketball 10 has something very similar. In my opinion, the game last year, it had all the parts, but there were just a lot of bugs, minor issues. It just didn't gel and go together. In recruiting, I'll give one example. In recruiting, I know this sounds minor, but I read a lot of complaints on this. When you go into recruiting and you reorganize your board and then go talk to a player, when you backed out, it reset. So it was an interface issue, but it was a huge one. Anyone who really likes recruiting like I do in sports games found it a huge pain in the backside that it really made you not want to recruit. A lot of people didn't like the way the recruiting system worked. There were no assistant coaches. There's no coaching carousel. And with a game with this franchise now featuring real coaches starting last year, people don't want to see the one coach at the same school for 30 years. That it's going to have to add in some kind of coaching carousel. In addition, the franchise, I said this last year in my kind of preview of NCAA Basketball 9, I felt the franchise needed kind of a hook or a big feature. The big one that a lot of people have been asking for has been Online Dynasty. It'd be a lot tougher to institute in a basketball game. However, I think it's the one feature people want more than anything else. I've seen a creative school feature up there quite a bit, coaching carousel up there quite a bit. This presentation is a pretty big feature, though, and it's really going to make games feel a lot different. Like we said earlier, you can pick who you want as your commentators and your telecast style, that it'll help keep games fresh, big game feel. NBA Live 10, and I would expect something similar in NCAA Basketball 10, had different crowd styles, from season to playoffs to NBA Finals. Even in season mode, the crowd will get loud and intense, especially at the end of games and in big moments. But in playoffs and NBA Finals, it's a whole new level. They get louder throughout. In the finals, they're waving towels. It gets pretty intense. That I would expect the crowds in this game to be somewhat similar to that. Now, will it be selectable? Maybe not. But hopefully they'll at least be smarter and get louder and make you feel like you're in a basketball game. But I will say that NCAA Basketball 9 did a good job of that. This isn't a huge area they have to bridge in 1 year's time. That they did a pretty solid job last year. Before we wrap up, Tommy, your final thoughts on this early news for NCAA Basketball 10 in these videos. What do you think?
As we've said before, it really is pulling in a lot of people. It's like I said, it's almost surprising how many people are turning their head now and looking at this NCAA basketball series just purely based off the presentation that we've seen so far. If they do a bang-up job with the Dynasty, if they get it up to on par with even just the NCAA football series, then I really think that this could be a big selling franchise. I think that they have done a lot to draw in the people, and now all they have to do is keep them interested in the game.
What's really amazing to me is how much in just 2 years span this franchise has improved from March Madness 08 to what we know very little of with NCAA Basketball 10. It's had a new gameplay gameplay engine, the presentation has been completely revamped, that it's really undergone huge changes. For Tommy, this is Chris. Everyone, thanks for listening to this edition of the Utopia podcast.